welcome back to the Joshua Cuthbertson Show. This is episode 59. And before I get into my special guest, I would once again like to shout out our sponsor, the MMC Insurance Company, located on Trent Road in New Bern, North Carolina, owned by Travis Wayne. And now, for my special guest, she's one of our very own graduated alumni from the West Craven Eagle side. She graduated from ECU and UNCW, and she has a lot on her resume, so I'm going to let her explain her. What it is, a master's?
I have a bachelor's from ECU.
A bachelor's from ECU.
A master's from ECU as well.
A master's from ECU.
And then earned my doctorate from UNC Wilmington.
And a doctorate from UNC Wilmington. And she's been here, the principal of Oaks Road Elementary School for the last 5 years. And the kids call her Miss Dr. Patrick, so that's what I'm going to call her today. How you doing, Miss Dr. Patrick?
I am wonderful.
Yes,
It's wonderful to see you again.
Yes, ma'am. See, y'all don't know. See, she was my teacher at James W. Smith, and she used to have a computer class I used to stay after. And she taught me a lot of things about technology and hands-on with the computer, so I'm thankful for you being in my life early when I was growing up.
And I'm glad to see you, and I'm glad to see that you're doing so well.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So let's get into your life story. How did you grow up as a kid?
Okay, I grew up in Vanceboro on the family farm on the Mile Road in Vanceboro. Grew up with all of my cousins and aunts and uncles, and definitely learned at an early age the value of hard work and the value of an education, and not much of an option there in our household about valuing both of those things. And so definitely, again, learned very early to work hard and to do well in school.
Yes, ma'am. So how was it growing up on a farm? See, I didn't grow up on a farm, so I don't know nothing about the farm. How was it growing up on a farm?
Well, thankfully, or somewhat thankfully, I didn't have to do a whole lot of the farm work, but I did watch.
Yes, ma'am.
You watch the work. We had your crops, tobacco and corn, and then also, believe it or not, we had a little bit of livestock, so hogs. And at one point, my dad decided he was going to try cows, and so yeah, so that was definitely interesting. But I did not partake in that hands-on. My brother had the a little bit more hands-on when it came to the animals. But my job was to do well in school and to appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So me reading up on your background a little bit from a little kid to now, I see you have a family, a wonderful husband, and you just had a kid. So talk a little bit about your family and how y'all are doing today during this pandemic.
Okay, so definitely I have a wonderful husband, Irvin.
Yes, ma'am.
We have actually been together since I was a sophomore in high school. So we're at about 20...
High school sweethearts.
High school sweethearts.
Yes,
so we're at about 25 years of being together. We've been married for 13 years, and we just had our first baby, a little boy named Brian.
Yes, ma'am. Congratulations.
Thank you. And Brian just turned 1. And so definitely very blessed to have such a wonderful family. My husband is very supportive, and as a principal, there are many long hours. Definitely as I was going to school, long hours. I actually commuted to Wilmington, so drove 2 hours to class, and so he had my back
yes, ma'am.
Every step of the way, and so
That's
definitely
awesome.
Blessed to have just a wonderful partner.
So how was it going to school? Like ECU, UNCW, how was it first going to ECU and then figuring out what you was going to do and then making the transition to UNCW?
Okay, so for me, I always wanted to be a teacher. That's always what I wanted to do. I did, when I got to college, try out different majors. I think every semester I changed my major. So I did, business administration for a while. I did accounting. I tried out dentistry. And so tried it all out, but ultimately I knew I wanted to be a teacher.
Yes,
I actually started at Craven Community College and went to school there for a year and a half and transferred to ECU.
Yes,
was very focused on school. I did not want to stay in school forever, and so I went to class and went home and studied. I actually graduated in 3 years because I was determined not to stay in college forever.
Yes, ma'am.
So school for me just is something that I'm passionate about because I know that it can open doors for anyone. And so for myself especially, just remaining focused on my schoolwork. I was not a partier. I was not, I didn't hang out a lot. I went to class. I went home, did my homework. And so ECU, I didn't have the traditional party life at ECU. I was really just focused on graduating.
Just graduating.
Yeah. UNC Wilmington, I was a little bit older when I went to UNCW. I think I started there. I was maybe around 30 years old. Kind of the same thing. I was driving to Wilmington on Monday night. And so, again, very focused. I left work, drove to Wilmington, finished class around 9:30. Drove back, got in around midnight, and got up the next morning and went right back to work.
Oh, my God.
But again, remaining focused. I wanted to earn that doctorate degree. It was something that I had as a personal goal of mine. And so whether it was a long drive or late night, I just was very focused on achieving that goal.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, my goodness. You're the real definition of hard work. That's a lot of hard work. So within any of that time, did you find yourself stressing out or having struggles like balancing being a principal and having home with your husband and school classwork? Did you
Most
find
definitely.
any struggles?
Most definitely. And I did have to learn along the way to balance. I did focus sometimes a little bit too heavily on work, too heavily on my schoolwork, and my husband, bless his heart, I did not at times focus on him. And to be very honest, I don't know what my husband has eaten for the last 10 years because I really just in my focus on work.
Yes,
I did not, cook or any of those things that typically a wife would do.
Because you're so focused on accomplishing those goals.
Yes, but definitely, having a small one now that has created a reality check, and so I have had to definitely figure out how to balance work and school and life a lot better. Because having a little one running around puts a lot of things into perspective, which I should have learned that on my own, but definitely, having a family, makes you really appreciate what you have, but then also to take care of it.
Yes, ma'am. So you said you've been the principal here for the last 5 years.
This is my 5th year.
Yes, ma'am, and I know the first 4 years wasn't like this last one here.
No.
So talk about being the principal in the first 4 years, and then all of a sudden the pandemic hit you, the coronavirus, and then you having to adjust to so many different things as a principal.
Okay, so Oaks Road for me actually it was kind of like coming home. I was the principal at Trent Park for 5 years prior to coming to Oaks Road, but the year that I started at Oaks Road was the year after Craven County Schools redistricted, and so Oaks Road picked up many of the families from the west side, and so we picked up, Colonial Trailer Park, we picked up Beach Grove, and that side of town.
Ma'am.
And so for me, thankfully, many of those students and families, they were my James W. Smith families.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I felt like I was at home because they were folks that I knew, that being the west side and where I went to school, I knew a lot of the parents, and so again, I felt like I was at home.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
so, coming here, it was nice. The staff here is wonderful. We have had our share of difficulty. We had the hurricane and then now the pandemic. But ultimately, our staff members are very dedicated to helping the students here, helping everyone achieve their very best, whether it is a hurricane or a pandemic. So the pandemic has definitely created some additional challenges, but again, having that focus on working with our kids and families to help them become successful we have maintained that as our goal.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So I wanted to ask you, do you see any differences from when you was going to school as a student in high school or college and to now as you seeing students grow up as kids? Do you see any differences when you was growing up to how they grow up now?
Definitely so. There are a lot more, I'll say, distractions for kids these days. Again, for me, in Vanceboro, not quite the number of distractions, but now, kids have, technology. They've got, a lot of family difficulty and issues that unfortunately at times kids have to help in their family with those situations or help, problem solve.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
so kids now, they do have to balance a lot more than I think kids my age did. Again, a lot more distractions, and then a lot more options for kids, good and bad. So you have again, living in Vanceboro for me, you didn't have a lot of the extracurricular activities. And kids now you do. You've got lacrosse, you've got sports, you've got Girl Scouts, and all of those things that kids have to, at a very early age, learn how to balance school with things that they're interested in. For me, the only interest was school.
Yes,
so you didn't have necessarily that balance that you had to
So
keep.
you didn't grow up with too much technology? Talk a little bit about that, like the technology from how you grow up to now.
Okay, so in my house, we did at one point eventually get a computer. It probably was maybe around middle school, high school, you got a computer. For the most part, you could type, a document or an essay, save it on your floppy disk.
Yes, ma'am.
But that was pretty much the extent of it.
Man, wasn't no Google, no YouTube?
No, I think at that point you might have had Alta Vista was how you searched. It was before the days of Google. I think Alta Vista was the search engine by the time I was in high school. But no, definitely not a lot of technology. My household, we didn't have cable or satellite until high school, and so again, school was about it.
Ma'am. So it was your focus, was
that was
the
my
homework
focus.
and
That's right.
Ma'am.
That's right. But eventually, did have to figure out technology. By the time I graduated high school, computers and the internet did become a bit more mainstream, and so making that adjustment. Definitely when I was in college, it was very popular. And by the time I became a teacher, it was the norm to have a computer in the classroom. When I first started, there were 2 computers in the room, and everyone had to rotate to the
Time
computer.
to get on the computer, yes, ma'am.
That's right, and definitely, a change in comparison to now. At our school now, the kids have, everyone has an iPad. We've got big screens everywhere, and
tablets and all.
Yes,
yes ma'am.
Yeah, very different than back in the 80s.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So, with all on your resume, with all the hard work you done put in, and I know you're not going to stop. So, what's next for Miss Dr. Patrick?
Okay, so definitely I'm not done with growing myself as a professional. I am currently investigating other degrees.
Yes, ma'am.
Again, school is something that I enjoy, and so looking at ways to expand. So actually, when I first started, one of the things I was interested in was early childhood education, and so looking at, pursuing that. Also, as a teacher or as an educator, you have opportunities for additional certifications, and so it could be working with ESL students, which is students learning English as a second language, or academically gifted students. Math is an interest of mine, and so right now that I've got baby kind of situated and figured out the mom life, wanting to get back into school myself, just to continue learning, because I just think it's what you need to do.
Yes, ma'am. That's awesome. There y'all have it, y'all. That's the end of the 59th episode of the Joshua Cuthbertson Show with Miss Dr. Patrick Xavier. MJ, AJ, I'm telling you, she tell me y'all be bad. I'm on y'all now. I'm telling you now. We out. All right, y'all. Thank you for watching the Joshua Cuthbertson Show. Please continue to show your love and support by clicking the subscribe button below the video. Check us out next week on the next episode of the Joshua Cuthbertson Show. We out.